In the current world of RuneScape, it's rare that players agree so overwhelmingly so often. Slayer is one of those occasions where players do. In this video, we will take a deeper look at the skill Slayer and why it's so loved. When old school RuneScape released in 2013, there were only 5 Slayer Masters and 3 Slayer Dungeons, along with an original 31 different Slayer specific monsters. Through the 10 years old school RuneScape has been out, the game's received many updates. But one skill that has received a ton of content is Slayer. There have been 4 Slayer Masters added to the original 5, and with the help of my calculator I can confirm that makes 9 in total now. The original Turiel, we're going to call them Maz, Vanica, Chaeldar, and everyone's favourite, Duradaddy. I mean Duradel. With Neve, Krystilia, Konar, and Spria being added throughout the years, and with 4 new Slayer Masters have come a plethora of other content. Not including smaller instances, there have been 5 Slayer Dungeons added. The Stronghold Slayer Cave, Catacombs of Kurand, the Wyvern Cave, Karum Slayer Dungeon, and Ioworth Dungeon. And with all those dungeons being added, of course there have been many new Slayer monsters added, as well as bosses and normal monsters that can now be assigned as tasks. There have been 15, give or take a few, Slayer specific monsters added to the game, 5 of them being bosses, and all that doesn't include normal monsters that can now be assigned as tasks. If you include that, then Slayer as a whole is massive. So why all the love for Slayer? Well, the community really likes Slayer, and old school RuneScape is a very community based game. I'm sure everyone knows the polling system, but in case you don't, pretty much all major content in the game gets polled and needs 70% majority to pass and be implemented into the game. It used to be 75, but has recently changed. With this system in place, you can see most good Slayer updates presented to the community pass, and there have been a few that have failed. Now, the polling system has its own positives and negatives, but that's for another video. So I believe there are 3 main reasons why it's loved. The first being variety. Slayer has a huge variety of things to do. Like I mentioned before, there are around 45 Slayer specific monsters now, with normal monsters also being given as tasks. I think that is greatly beneficial to the skill, and why players like it so much. If you take something like woodcutting for example, yes, there's a most effective method which you can do, like 2-tick teak cutting. No shade to the efficiency grind, but a lot of people will find something like this boring. Stuck in the same place, doing the same motion over and over for X amount of hours. Same with other skills like barb fishing. That's different in Slayer. Yes, there is probably a most effective method to training and other things like point farming, but with massive variety of tasks and enemies to kill, it provides a greatly needed change of scenery. Another good thing being monsters have different weaknesses, which means you'll constantly be changing your combat style. With the change in scenery also comes a good sense of exploration and learning about the game, with Slayer Masters for pretty much all combat levels and for the different regions of the game, making Slayer a good excuse to actually explore places you probably would never go. On top of this are bosses. As you progress into Slayer, you will be able to replace normal tasks with boss tasks, like King Black Dragon instead of Brutal Blacks, or Vorkath instead of Blue Dragons. And when you progress even further into Slayer, you are able to unlock the later game bosses like Alchemical Hydra and Cerberus, meaning there is a real sense of progression within the skill itself, not to mention how interconnected it is. This being the second reason, of how intertwined it is with other skills. You can train any combat skill any way you want, but at a certain point in training combats, a lot of people will just recommend you to just train with Slayer, and I agree. The reason being it breaks up the grind. Like I said before, monsters have different weaknesses, making you change up your combat skill, and getting a kind of even training going. On your way to 99 Slayer, if you choose to do that, you will probably max out your other combats. And with the benefit of the Slayer Helm, it does make it feel fast overall. Speaking of the Slayer Helm, it leads on to the next segment. It feels rewarding. So there are a couple of different things that feel good and rewarding with Slayer. The first being it's good money. You can earn great amounts of GP with Slayer. The higher you go up the Slayer ladder, the more valuable it becomes, even leading to some of the best money in the game. And if you are an Iron Man, it feels even better grinding out Slayer tasks, getting those unique drops and releasing that sweet dopamine into your brain. with some items really feeling like upgrades. It can give you a real great sense of achievement. On top of GP, the Slayer system as a whole feels good. Completing tasks earns you points, and points can be spent in numerous ways. The before mentioned Slayer Helm, which further increases your feeling of being rewarded, giving you a damage boost whilst on task. You can kill bosses and normal monsters faster, earning more GP, XP, and points faster. Unlocking new tasks, extending your favourite ones, like Dust Devils for good bursting XP, and adding new mechanics altogether. Well, not really new mechanics, but superiors do add something else. Superiors are a sort of mini-boss, or a beefed up version of the monsters that you're fighting. You can also spend points on things like Rune Pouch or Herb Sack, but of course most people will get these from other methods. Regardless, from main accounts to especially Iron Man, Slayer unlocks so much of the game, letting you experience new things from beginner to end game. And I think that's pretty cool. Now I know it's nice to call Slayer this perfect skill, but there is a few downsides. I personally don't mind, but it's worth mentioning. It's a bit of a slog to train in the early game, until a point where it becomes worth it. A lot of the early game tasks can feel a little unrewarding, and it's not the fastest way to train your combat skills. There are more effective ways to train any given skill. But like I said, I don't personally think this is a bad thing. I think it strikes a good balance of, well, being balanced. The only thing I can say about negatives, or positives depending on what way you play, is the noted skilling drops from some enemies. It kind of kills some of the money made from skilling, which is a shame for some people that are interested in that. But also, you know, bots are a thing. We can't ignore that. Now, obviously no skill is perfect in RuneScape. You can see that with how the RuneScape developers are approaching skills these days, and different activities like Guardians of the Rift, and making them feel more rewarding. Like all the skills that have had updates and added unique drops, like new outfits or pets, and so on. I think this is great. I think it's the right direction to move in. And with the new forestry update to woodcutting coming soon, I think we are well on our way to upgrading the old skills of the past and making them more fun. Yes, all these things might not be the most efficient, but what's the point of efficiency if it bores you to death? Or worse, you burn out. All in all, Slayer is regarded as one of the best skills in RuneScape, and I don't disagree. It feels like it strikes a good balance and brings a connection to the game, like the linking of combat skills and meaningful progression. It also gives you something to aim towards, whilst leading you onto harder content and improving your actual abilities at the game. Well, that's it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate the support my videos have been getting. If you liked this video, please leave a like and subscribe, it helps a lot. Also, let me know in the comments if I'm the only one that completely forgot Spria existed. Thank you.